רפואה שלמה.
דוד בן שרה.
דוד בן שרה. הכהן, שליח הרבי.
נכון. אוקיי. So where are we holding?
אוקיי. והנה יש באדם.
Base.
כן. והנה יש באדם בחינת עיר מושב, ובחינת שדה ומדבר. Every person has in himself a civilized, populated part of his nefesh, of his psyche, and a שדה ומדבר, a place that's hefker.
Well, Sadeh is no hefker, the midbar.
Midbar is hefker.
The king doesn't go into the midbar.
Okay. The sadeh is something in between. It's outside the city. It's not populated, but it's not completely hefker. It's like it supports everything. So we have here 3 different levels: Ir Moshav, Sadeh, Midbar. And if we have time, we do the gematria. Midbar היא ארץ לא זרועה, שהם המעשים והדיבורים והמחשבות אשר לא להשם הם. So the midbar, the desert, which really means a wild, untamed country, is those things that the person did that they're collected in him, the thoughts and the things he spoke and the things he did that were not for Hashem.
So then it's interesting the depth of the Am Yisrael of the Torah in the midbar.
אין צריך לומר אם פגם במחשבה, דיבור ומעשה. All the more so if he not only did something that was not for Hashem, it was against Hashem. אלא אפילו גם ענייני התר, even if it's just something that's permissible. רק שמעניינים שאינם צריכים לעבודת השם ודברים בטלים, even if it's just things that are permissible and he didn't do them in order to serve Hashem, and if they're...
Why is that against Hashem?
No, that's not against Hashem. That's the first category, that it's not for Hashem. ודברים בטלים, and empty words that have no purpose. הרי לאו אורחא דמלכא להשתהי במילי דאידיוטה, which I always quote from the Zohar, but it's not in the Zohar, it's in the Gemara. That the way of a king is not to talk empty words. He doesn't... What's the word they use in English?
Stuff and nonsense.
Yeah, it's not even small talk. There's this not so nice phrase that they use, let's beat the wind, or something like that. I don't know exactly what it's called. I remember it used to be in America now. I don't remember America anymore. So there used to be this thing. The people say, well, just beat the wind or whatever. It's just to have wind come out of your mouth. So a king doesn't do these things. So that's why Hashem cannot be in a person's empty words, in his small talk. וזהו אשר לא ישב אדם שם. And that's what it means, that a human has never dwelt there, has never settled there. Meaning, Perush Adam, what is this human that we're talking about? What is this Adam that we're talking about in this verse? Right? That's a verse from the Torah. That Hashem says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I took you through the desert, Makom, Saraf, V'nachash, V'akrav, asher lo yashav Adam sham. A place of all these afflictions.
So the Bedouin is not called the Bnei Adam.
נכון, פר האדם. פר האדם. על פני כל אחיו נפל, it says. He's not מתיישב, he doesn't... But of course the purpose of the purpose of Torah is to make peace in these places, meaning to cause people to settle down. The fact that there's one person who doesn't settle down, he's like that. When you have an entire people that are like that are nomadic, so we say they're primitive. By primitive we mean that they don't fulfill their real purpose in the world. They could do so much more. So Perush Adamu, K'mo shekatuv, what is this Adam, this man, this human that doesn't dwell in these actions that are meaningless? The Adam he's talking about, the man he's talking about is what Ezekiel saw in the chariot. And on top of the chair, the Mut Kemar Adam, there was an image with the likeness of a man. That's like... Amen. And he lo yashav sham. He can't dwell there. Okay? The kiseh is an image that was later used by the philosophers and by the
I don't understand.
Mekubalim.
What's the fact that there's a picture of a human being
That when Hashem dwells in something, the form is the form of a human. That's what Hashem said about we make man in our image and in our likeness.
Okay, what's it to do with the mikvah?
So it's saying to call something a wilderness, really midbar is a wilderness. To say that it's a wilderness, it's unpopulated, means to say that the form of Hashem can't come into these things. That these types of actions, even if they're just permissible.
Okay. So how does that fit up with the idea of the kiseh and the picture?
Right. So what's the kiseh? So the kiseh is like something that the king sits on in order to run the country. In the early philosophers, like the Rambam, so their whole picture of the world was that the world runs by these planets that revolve around it and cause everything, give motion to everything underneath.
That's a Zara.
No, but the Shalom. Why is it a Zara? You don't worship them. You just say that's the mechanism by which Hashem runs the world.
You're saying they're running the world.
No, they run the world in the sense that that's what you see.
Enosh made his mistake.
That's what. Okay, if you begin to worship it, that's the problem. But it's for them that was the mechanical, not mechanical really. It was more like they called
the
it
mechanism through which.
Okay, but what they meant really was that for them life was motion. It still is, by the way. What's the difference between something that's alive and something that's not? So we either point to reproduction in some way, or we point to motion.
If a stone is not dead.
For us, it's not alive. For the Torah, it is, for some reason. It's not very clear why. It doesn't have any wants. It doesn't want anything. It's not going anywhere. So, in any case. So for them, motion was...
When the earth to be trod upon is an idiot who gave you permission to walk on it.
About all these things, the usual explanation is that that's the angel that is responsible for that earth, not the earth itself. So it doesn't matter. There's 4 different explanations about what each one of these sayings means, but you can't take it exactly literally. So getting back to life for them was motion. In the same way that today we would say that motion is heat, right? That how do we translate heat as motion? That if there is an absolute zero, there's no movement at all. For them, movement was life. They have this definition. They say kol chai mitnoel. Everything that's alive moves. So they looked at where was there perpetual movement, something that's always moving. Where do you find something that's always moving? The sun and the moon and the stars and so on, they're always moving. So they understood the source of all energy on earth was coming from these wheels that were turning in the heavens, meaning and they understood the star that they see, the planet, the star, as the nefesh of the wheel. That's how they understood it. Meaning that he causes it to turn around. And they asked the question, the Jews asked, this is as far as the Greeks went. Then the Jews said, why are they moving? Where are they going? What do they want that they're moving all the time? What does the nefesh want there? Because nefesh means to want something. So they said that they're constantly bowing down to Hashem. That's what they want. They want to serve Hashem. Okay. So what they tried to give at that is an image that these wheels, this whole mechanism that's giving energy down into earth, is in the end fueled by worshiping God. That's it. The ninth wheel was called Hasechel HaPo'el by the Rambam. Okay. By the Greeks, they called it the chair. Amazing. Where did they get this idea? That's what it was called. And the sages loved this. They said, that's what Yechezkel saw. Except that the chair, even though it's the first mover, as it were, it's still just a chair. Somebody's sitting on it. Who's sitting on it? Dmut k'marei Adam. Hashem is sitting on it. So in the end, it's all Hashem. Okay? And they're all bowing down to Hashem. So it was very good for them that the stars were in the furthermost wheel, because the farther away you are, the more energy there is. You're giving more energy, as it were, which also makes sense. And then the closer you are, the less impact you have, until you reach the earth. So they had the whole picture of the chair as being the seat of what is mut. The Greeks didn't have the tent. Only in Torah that they had the tent. And the tent is really
Now I'll ask you something that will annoy you.
what?
Now I'll ask you something that will annoy you.
Yeah.
What do I need all this Greek philosophy for?
Because we adapted it.
But
We took
we
it.
have our own Jewish philosophy.
No, it's not true. Rashab, I just wrote about it yesterday. Rashab says in Ayin Beis, very important, one of the most important things he says. He says you cannot get a sense of Hashem unless you start from a physical model. You have to take something in the physical world, extrapolate, abstract it into Torah, from Torah into the nefesh, according to Torah, and only then do you get a sense of Hashem.
No problem. You look at physics. Look at, how everything is really nothing and only space.
Very good. That's the modern physics.
But why do I need the philosophy of the Greeks and the Romans?
We don't need their philosophy. They had a model, and Chazal took it with both hands. They said, this is the understanding we have today of nature. Fine. We're not arguing. Does this fit our model? He said, yes, 100% it fits. Why? Because we have 9 sfirot. They didn't talk the whole Indian there, how to exactly correspond them. In the end, Olam HaKiseh is Bina. It's not even Chokhmah. The figure that you see on the chair is Chokhmah. So this was one of the earliest
The figure on the chair was Chokhmah, just as the figure on the chair is Chazal Rishon, the Yaakov Avinu.
yeah, it's Adam is Chokhmah.
What?
It's only Chokhmah. It's not even Keter yet. But on his head he also has a Keter. Again, this is all images. This was one of the first articulations of how Chazal understood the 10 levels of call it hashpa'ah in the world, of how Hashem runs the world. In the end comes the Baal Shem Tov and says, this is all good for analyzing intellectual mind to understand a topic. So you have to have this model of 10. You have to analyze everything based on 10. So that's why we need it, because Chazal adapted it completely. Except that they also made the necessary changes. The main change they made was that on the chair, there's somebody sitting on the chair. And so how do you know that? Because Yechezkel told me. Okay. Would I know without Yechezkel? Yes, I would know it from other places also. There's a few places that I would come to that conclusion. But even from kingship itself, even from how you run a kingdom, they would know this. But we see that's the image we have in Rosh Hashanah. That's exactly the image. And that's the image he's working on here right now. He's saying that in the Sod, he can't dwell. He can't sit in his chair. He can only do it in the city. So that's the image that we're going to work on now, saying what does it mean then that he goes out to the Sadeh? The Sadeh here is, first of all, what he says, Eretz lo zruah, hadiburim v'machshavot v'maasim asher lo le'Hashem hem. And those things that until now have been without the purpose of serving Hashem, that's exactly where Hashem is going to appear now, in the Sadeh. Ve'itza yu'utza lazeh, והנה כתיבו ביקשתם משם את השם אלוקיך. פירוש, What does it mean that when in the parsha of Tshuva in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 30, it says, "And you shall ask, and you shall seek Hashem from there, Misham." So what does it mean? What's the eitzah here? Perush, ki nei ktiv vayar Elokim ta'or ki tov. It says God saw the light and saw that it was good. Perushuv azal ki tov lignoz, that it's good to conceal it, to hide it. Shebchinat or shebchinat ha'arat pnimiyut retzono yitbarach yesh bechol echad ve'echad miYisrael, ela shu b'bchinas ester ve'elem. So here he has a new explanation that the light of the first 36 hours of creation, where did Hashem conceal it? He concealed it in each one of us. Usually we say he concealed it in the Torah, but it doesn't say that he concealed it in the Torah. There's different explanations of where exactly he hid it. So it exists also in each one of us, in every Jew, but it's concealed. But me'od betiv'o, it's in his nature even. Meaning I don't have to have special thoughts for this light to exist. It's there within everything I do. This we know the famous passage in Tanya, that the person has to reveal this treasure trove of fear of Hashem that he has, awe of Hashem that he has inside of him. Really, what does awe of Hashem mean? If you translate, that you have sensitivity to divine, to spiritual things. That you have sensitivity to act in a way that's spiritual. And every Jew has it inside of him. That's Yirat Shamayim. V'yesh mishu b'bchinat aveda etzel b'bchinat galut. But there are people where it's been hidden for so long, it's so concealed, it's like it went out into exile. It's gone. It's lost. You have to find it. And for that it says, uvikashtem shetavakesh v'techapes. So you have to search for it. It's not to seek out Hashem. Uvikashtem et Hashem elokechem is not to seek out Hashem, to say, where is Hashem? Hashem is everywhere. That's not the issue. The question is, where is Hashem in me? Where is this treasure that He placed in me? V'techapes, you have to seek it. And when you say chipus, en chipus ela achar aveda. Chipus is always after something that's lost. Dahainu davar shu avuda tzlo b'chinat galut, shu b'chinat nitzot elokut. So this is the divine spark that's in each one of us, and is lost right now. V'zeu et Hashem elokecha. Right? What do you mean? Et Hashem elokechem. V'chipasta misham et Hashem elokecha. You'll search for Hashem, your God. Hashem, your God, what he means is the divine spark inside of me. Shu nimshach mibchinat kel, as we talked about that before, that kel is the first of the 13 measures of mercy, of compassion. And we said that it is the spark that Hashem puts into everything. That's the ha'arat hapanim. The ability to do what Hashem wants comes from that spark, and that's what you're seeking. And it's a divine spark that gives life to the divine soul. What does Sham mean? Misham daika. From there exactly. There meaning כי כשם שאי אפשר לחפש אחר עבודה מצא זולת במקום שנעבדה, כך לא ישיגו על בני השם ושתהיה אהבתו אליו ויראתו על בניו, כי אם אחר חיפוש תחילה במקום שנעבדה לו. The person has to search, can't search under the lamplight, under the right, the guy who's searching for something in the middle of the night under the street light. Somebody comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking for my wallet." He says, "Really? You lost it here?" "No, but here there's light." So you can't search where there's light. You have to search where you lost. Even if it's a dark place, it's a wilderness, whatever it is, that's where it is. But you have to go back into those actions that you did, and there search for the divine spark that was there. It was there. It's always there. But you have to elevate it. You have to find it.
Why can't you just do tshuva?
That's called tshuva.
No, why do you have to search? Why can't you just say whatever it is?
Because that's what tshuva means.
The one, okay, I'm sorry, Hashem forgive me.
No. That's not tshuva.
Why not?
That says, the past is the past. I give up on it. The energy I expended was worthless, and I'll move on. That's very nice. That's not tshuva. Tshuva is to change the past, not to give up on the past.
I don't remember it.
I've said it, so as much as you can. Well, he'll say here what the general eitzah is, but of course, as much as a person does remember the things that he wasted his time on, that they had nothing to do with divine service, they had nothing to do with serving Hashem, nothing to do with Torah, nothing to do with mitzvahs, nothing to do with helping somebody else, whatever it is, he has to find the spark in them, because they're not really lost. They're not gone forever. They're waiting there for him to find the divine spark that was there. Let's see this. The Atik Yomin, sorry. במקום שנאבדה לו, על דרך מה שכתוב, נחתסה דרכנו ונחקורה. Right? What does it mean? שיפשפש במעשיו ודיבוריו ומחשבותיו שעברו וחלפו מיום היותו אשר לא טובים, וזהו בקשתם משם. So he has to go over.
The guy gets up every single morning, goes to work, and doesn't do nothing, right? There's no interest. Then suddenly one day he wakes up, and he starts getting up in the morning and going in the morning. So this new action, this new kivun that he's got, that's mechaper on the past.
No. He has to
say that if I would have known, then that's what I would have done this.
If I would have known, so I'm changing.
He doesn't have to go through every single day
if he
what
can,
he did
why
over
not?
the 50 years.
Why not? If he knows, why not? Not that long. Doesn't take that long to think of 50 years. Right. That's a cheshbon. That's a cheshbon. People don't do it, you're right. They don't sit down for like an hour and go over the entire year. It doesn't take that long to go over the entire year. Of course, that's one of the reasons why people who are very, as you get older, you keep a schedule. The fact that you keep a schedule gives you a very good idea of what you did every day. You might not remember every detail. It doesn't take more than an hour or 2 hours. It's a famous thing. The people had books in which they wrote down everything they did. Journaling. Today they call it journaling. So they wonder, why does journaling work? It works because journaling, they call it. You journal. People, today it's called a journal. In America, it's called a journal. So when you can't diary. It doesn't sound good. It sounds like going to the bathroom. But you can journal. Whatever that sounds like. Buongiorno. So it works because you're accountable. Because you're accountable. From there. Because you're accountable. To lead life without being accountable for the greatest tzaddikim were accountable for every moment. Like we know about the Rebbe that one time he had to go. He went up to the camp, and he came back, and 3 months later.
No, the next year they came back to it.
And they asked for him to come. And he said, "I can't."
I'm still trying to make up the minutes.
But there were many tzaddikim that were like this. That if you're a real tzaddik, you know you're accountable for. So usually the idea is that if I don't remember it, it was okay. If I do remember it, it wasn't okay. So if you only have a few minutes every day that you need to remember, you're in good shape. I need to remember most of my day.
The Rebbe had a notebook which he wrote down.
Who?
The Rebbe had a notebook and he wrote down.
Who?
The Rebbe.
Yeah.
He wrote down that every minute that he wasted. Okay, the Rosh Hashanah, he wrote in his notebook. That year he wasted 4 minutes.
So that's tshuva. To do tshuva just in the sense that, so from now on I'll be okay. It's nice. It carries very little weight in the end, even in the psyche. It doesn't change anything inside. Because you're not accountable. What do you mean? Every time you're going to do something that's a waste of time, you'll just forget it and it'll be okay? That's the opposite of changing.
No, there's Sumerah, but there's also going to be Asay Toy. So therefore,
not Sumerah, that's the Asay Toy.
So therefore, given that was a waste of time, from now on, we'll use the time productively.
It's very nice, but it doesn't change anything. Because the whole point of tshuva is to change the past. The whole point of tshuva is that it's a miracle that changes the past. That's what I'm saying, that today the modern art that everybody talks about, there's a lot of people talking about it now. If you go into self-help and stuff like that, you'll see tons of examples and people writing about how journaling changed their lives. And the reason is because they became accountable.